when we look at a page, how can it use JavaScript? So one of the things, the simplest way you use JavaScript is actually just to say, okay, I'm going to add some behavior and make some local things slightly nicer. So if I have a number of drop-down boxes, like a box with countries, and then a box with counties, and a box with cities, you might want to use JavaScript to basically populate that in the right way. So if you select a certain country, and then it might say, okay, this is a state or a county or a province, depending on the country, and then it gives you the actual list of those. Those lists hardly ever change, so you can just pass them along in your web page if you want to, and that makes it nice and responsive. So you don't need to hit the internet again to get that. So that is what we want, what we can do with JavaScript. We can also use it to dynamically load internet resources. Maybe it's not that easy, or maybe you want to go and say, okay, we have a postcode and we want to look up the address. You don't really go and send over all postcodes and all addresses in the UK just because you want that functionality. No, rather you go and get you just make a request to say, give me the addresses that match this particular postcode, and then it gives you an address. It gives you those addresses. Then, when we have this web service, what we effectively have is a web service. You can load static resources that don't change, but you can also do resources. We can even send things or update stuff as the server lives on the internet. So that's how a page uses JavaScript. But so there are also some issues when we are using JavaScript. In particular, from a user's perspective, they don't necessarily need to see that JavaScript execution happens. And there are people around that, well, take advantage of this particular thing, or abuse this, better said. So one of the things that the way, if you look at how browsers work, there's this idea of cookies, where cookies are these little bits of information your browser will send along with a request. So your host sets them, and it says, next time you make a request to me, please send this along. That's what a cookie does. That's all it does. So it can contain things like an identifier for who you are or what your login session is, or it can say, okay, I don't want to be advertising tracked, or I want to have a white background. I want the white on black rather than black on white. It can have any kind of things in there. There's a size limit. You can't have it like a whole megabyte full of cookie. That makes your every request a bit slow, but that's what cookies can do. But cookies are linked to hosts, not pages. They are linked to and to paths within that host. So if a web page makes a request to another host, that would send the page from host A wants to make a request to host B. The browser will look up, okay, what's the host of what are the cookies for host B, and it will send those along, and then it gets the result. So yes, the JavaScript that came from host A cannot see the cookie for host B, but it can still make use of it. Well, except that there are all kinds of browser protections that stop this from happening, including the same origin policy. And when you're using pages, what you need to remember is that by default, you cannot just make requests to other hosts. When we look at regress that you have been using, that one has a special exception set up for itself that basically says, okay, anyone can make requests to us, it doesn't matter. Of course, for that particular website, it doesn't matter because it doesn't actually do anything. It actually returns results that are independent of your request. And there's no state actually, it's just a testing site. And when I say here, it could go to your bank server, your bank will also have additional security things in place to actually make this not work. Because it's never good to only have one layer of security, you want multiple layers of security. And including saying, okay, but this cookie is not available to JavaScript. Short sessions, so the cookie becomes invalid very quickly, etc., etc. They do all kind of stuff to make it safer. But maybe your bank is not the problem, but maybe your Facebook might be a problem. So there's the same origin policy. In addition, one of the things that you will run through very quickly if you are going to seriously make web pages is that in reality applications don't really work well if you use if you just host them on a normal file. Lots of aspects of JavaScript or HTML of JavaScript, they don't really work well if you don't have a host. That host can be your local host, but many things you need a web server. And make it working from a local file, sometimes it does it, sometimes it doesn't. There are many problems with working with local files. So that beyond the fact that, of course, if you actually want to make anyone else on the internet use your application, they can't look at the files on your local machine anyway. We need a server. So that is why I say make Flask host your files, because Flask is actually a web server. For production use, they don't advise you to use it for files that don't change, but you can. And for our purposes, having Flask as a web application server and then another server for static files is complete overkill. If you have lots and lots of users per second, then it becomes important how you do this and how you minimize resource usage. But for you, that is not an issue whatsoever.